Hello, everyone.
By the way, everyone is muted for
Gotcha.
now, and then I will be using the chat box to take questions. So just let us know.
Okay.
Well, we'll figure it out as we go along. So
We'll have questions at the ends and things like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
People feel free to ask questions as we go along. As Tom says, my name is Scott Tiffney. I'm the library director at the American Philatelic Research Library. I've been in the position for about 9 years now. Not in this position, but I've been at the APRL for about 9 years, I should say. I've been the director for about going on 2 years now. What I want to show you today is just one of our newest sort of member benefits, APRL Digital, which is a digital collections database, mostly journals, but some other items as well. I'm going to show you a bit of that. I'm also going to sort of walk you through how to access the collection. We're having a little bit of a special opportunity during this time when everybody's shut in, that you can access the digital collection more easily from home. And I'll go through that near the end of my talk. What I'd like to start with, if I can share my screen here. Just a brief PowerPoint presentation that I put together. If we can get this going, yeah.
Gotcha.
So as I say, my name's Scott Tiffney. I'm the library director in the library, and I'm going to do a brief sort of little bit of a background on the project and where we are and where we're about to go with it. So just a brief outline of what I'm going to talk about. I'll keep the PowerPoint pretty brief, but this is just to give you some overview of the project and what we've been doing. So I'll start with a little bit of introductions and the goals of the project. Then we'll get into the protocols that we used when we were doing the project. Also the scope, what we have so far, where we'd like to go with the project. And then I'll walk you through physically. We'll actually sort of go and I'll show you the database as it is and show you some of the procedures for logging in, for display, for saving and printing things from the database, as well as downloading and searching the database. So just a little bit of background on the goals of the project. Our idea was to digitize available unique philatelic literature. And I'll get a little more into detail about what we mean by unique philatelic literature. I think some of you can think right away of what we might need for that. There's so much in the philatelic literature world that's sort of unique to this subject matter, and that would be great to have in the database. But we had to sort of start somewhere in terms of when we first started populating the database. Next, I'll give you a little bit of background on how we went about selecting the platform and the software that we're using for the project. And then finally, some considerations that we had about the eventual database. Would we make it an open database or a member benefit? So what do we mean by digitize available unique philatelic literature? Well, some of the first two journals that we looked at were obvious, to digitize the American Philatelist, as well as digitize the quarterly library journal that we produced, the Philatelic Literature Review. And at that point, then what would we want to do with the database? So what we did was we looked at other similar projects. There's the Internet Archive, there's the Gutenberg Project, and there's also some really great digital philatelic databases out there that a lot of people are using, have used, and we wanted to sort of see what worked for them, what kind of sort of features that they had that we would like to have in this database as well. Some of the other ones, the Internet Archive and the Gutenberg Project, these are large digitization projects which include not just philatelic literature, but all sorts of different types of material. And so we wanted to see what best practices they had and sort of go about using those. Next, when we talk about selecting a platform and a software, we looked at a lot of different sort of software and platform opportunities. We talked with a number of different vendors. I was sort of peripheral on that at the time. I was still in the reference position when we were making the final selection for this. And what we decided to go with was a consortium or cooperative known as the OCLC. They're known by their acronym more than anything else. And they're called the Online Computer Library Center. They're based out of Ohio. And what it is, it's a cooperative of many libraries, worldwide libraries, of both university libraries, public libraries, research libraries like we are, nonprofit libraries like we are, that have come together and sort of shared ideas about what are some of the best practices that we have there, what else, what other sort of things that can we discuss amongst libraries. And they also have a wing of the cooperative which deals with software options and platforms for libraries. And their particular platform for digital collections management is called Content DM. Content DM is a software that's used by, most notably by the Smithsonian uses Content DM a lot. A lot of university libraries use it. Penn State here in Pennsylvania uses Content DM for a number of different types of databases, digital databases they have. It's really a software that's meant for digital material so that it can be searched, so that it can be sorted, so it can be organized and displayed. And so that's what we went with. When we looked at sort of, okay, we have this database that we're going to put together.
Hey, Scott, excuse me. Have you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you need to advance your presentation? You're still on the first page.
Is it really? I'm going right through it.
At least what I'm seeing is I'm seeing your actual PowerPoint. I'm not seeing the slideshow.
Okay. It says my screen sharing is paused.
Well, try to get. I'm seeing your looks like a taskbar.
Okay. Not sure why it's only sharing that. That's weird.
And it's giant.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why it's not sharing my screen. Yeah. I'll try this again.
There you go.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. So the next sort of consideration we had, as I mentioned, was whether to make this a member benefit or open source. And there are really two options. We can make it completely open and accessible to anyone, member or non-member, member-only access, or a combination of the two. And what we looked at first was sort of some sort of combination of open to anyone or just a member. Well, we decided on that right now it's a member-only benefit. We do have some material in it that's free and open for people to look at, something like exhibits for example, that section is open that anybody can look at. You don't have to be a member to sort of see the exhibits. But what we decided for now that it's a member benefit, so it's something that comes if you're a library member or if you're an APS member. Here are some of the protocols that we used when we're doing the scanning. So we used in-house book edge scanners that we have in the library. We have 3 book edge scanners in the library, 2 in the public space, 1 on the first floor, 1 on the second floor. We also have a dedicated book edge scanner that's in our sort of volunteer work area in a private area of the library. And we also have a large overhead scanner that will do large material. We haven't used that one yet, but we plan to use that when we get to things like books and other items and rare items. We scanned everything in color. This was done for the obvious reason that we have images, stamp images that are in color, obviously. But also we find that when we scanned items in color that it picks up text on a page better. So that when we do the OCR, when we're doing the optical character recognition for being able to search full text, it picks up those letters, those numbers, that text better. We used 2 different types of resolution. We did 300 DPI for pages that were strictly text. we used 600 DPI for pages that either had just images or images with text. We scanned them initially in TIFF files. The only reason we did that was because of the resolution depth, because of the image depth that TIFF files have. They have a lot more detail in their images. And so that's why we did it in TIFF. We're sort of going back and forth on this. We find sometimes if we scan things just straight into PDF, it sometimes is very effective as well. But we find for the majority of things, like particularly pages with images on, it's always better to scan them as TIFF files. There's always some cropping and some quality control, and this is what we use our interns that I mentioned in the first item there. We use our interns, we hire interns as we need them to scan pages, but they also do a lot of the cropping and the quality control. Once we have the images in the sort of form we like, they're then entered into the Content DM software. In the software, it then sort of OCRs, it makes an OCRs conversion, which makes it a readable PDF, which is what you see on when we get into the database. So it's a searchable page so that you can search the text on the page. And finally, then we upload it to the database. So just to give you an idea of the scope of what we have right now, we have about 500,000 pages scanned and uploaded. The largest portion of the database are journal entries or journal issues scanned. We have exhibits, books. We have some material from the reference collection. We also have some American banknote files. We have 3 movies there, as well as some photos as well. The majority, as I say, of the database are journals. So when I say 2,900 items, really that means 2,900 issues that we have scanned. Exhibits, we have 30 exhibits, 6 books. So the majority of the database, when we started the database, was to have it as a repository for digital journals. But we do want to sort of expand some of these other areas this year and in years to come. Just to give you an idea of the journals that we've already scanned that are in the database, I mentioned the American Philatelist. We have about 1,400 issues of that. Some of the real highlights for me in the database are the Collectors Club Philatelist, the Postal History Journal. We also have the Congress books in there as well. So some real sort of worthwhile journals that are searchable online and available once you enter the database. So some of the future plans for the database. Here are some of the journals that I've already been in contact with their publishers about sort of putting into the database this year. I've had great talks with a number of these societies and groups to sort of have these databases or these journals in the database. What's really exciting is the last 3 there, the Third Reich Study Group Bulletin, the Danzig Report, and the Post-World World War II German Stamps Bulletin. Those are all in German for the most part. Some of them have English sections in them, but for the majority of those journals, they're in German, which would be really exciting to have for those of, we're still working on search software that will search those properly. But for right now, it's great to have those as opportunities to put into the database. So right now, going forward, what we're looking to do is recruit new resources. A lot of this is centered around journals. So I've been in contact with a number of different societies and philatelic organizations, trying to sort of add their journals or bulletins or stamp club newsletters to the database. And I've written a couple of different blogs about this, and I've written a couple of articles in the AP as well as the PLR about this. And I'm just inviting sort of groups that are interested in having their journals online in the database to sort of join us. And really, it's a great opportunity for some of these smaller clubs or some of these smaller organizations to get some publicity. So we're certainly open to using it as an opportunity for them to sort of gain more membership in their clubs and organizations. But we do understand that some of these clubs and organizations use their journals as a member benefit. So they may not want necessarily their journals online. What we offer to organizations like that, for example, I mentioned earlier that the Collectors Club Philatelist is in the database. But what you will find is that the most recent 5 years are not available to everyone. They're only available to members of the Collectors Club of New York. And so we do have a sort of mechanism, if you will, to put what's called a moving wall that sort of only allows members of a certain club or an organization for which that journal is applicable to sort of view the most recent so many number of years. So for the Collectors Club, it's 5 years. I think for some other organizations, it's a 2-year wall. So the most recent 2 years worth of issues, they have access to, but not everybody does. So that's an offer that we make to clubs or organizations that may be concerned about making their journal available on the website in the database and not sort of having everything available to everybody. I'm also trying to improve some of the functionality of the database. What I'm going to show you in a few moments here is the new version of the database that we have. We have a responsive platform that it's on now. Responsive just means that it's more, it works more easily and more effectively with things like tablets and phones and other things like that. It still works great on desktops. It's not going to interfere with people using it on the desktop, but it is more sort of usable on things like tablets and smartphones. So I'm always interested in sort of trying to improve the functionality of the database. Some of the issues that we've been having so far, to be honest, are sort of searchability. We're still working on how it searches through documents effectively. Some of the other things I'd like to do, as I showed you earlier, we have most of the database is primarily philatelic journals, and we'd like to improve that to other things like books. I'm in contact with publishers who are interested in having their books up on the database, in the database, to sort of have them available. There's certainly options like things that have gone through copyright protection that we're interested in sort of putting up there as well, that sort of people can look at. I mentioned earlier about exhibits. We do have exhibits both just on the website, on the APS website, that are available to view, as well as exhibits that we have in the database right now for searching. Things like maps, postal route maps that we have in the library that I'd love to get digitized as well. We have a large photograph collection, particularly of the Heinz Airmail collection, which is a collection of early airmail. There was an airmail field when airmail was first being developed in the United States. Bellefonte, where the library is, had an airfield. And we have a lot of great photographs. We have about 300 to 400 photographs that we're in the process of scanning to sort of make those available in the database as well. We also have a lot of photographs from past stamp shows and past APS stamp shows and things like that we'd love to get up online and sort of make those available too. One of the really exciting parts of the collection that we have, apart from the digital collection, are the American Banknote Company files. We have a couple of sort of vertical files up on the second floor of the library. I don't even want to guess how many pages it is. It's several thousand pages of American Banknote Company files, mostly for the countries of South America that we have files for, that we'd love to sort of start scanning and sort of making available online and being able to be searched online as well. So that's another thing that we'd like to put in there. We also, in terms of posters, we have a lot of stamp posters that we'd like to make available as well. Now I'm going to take you through some of the basic sort of procedures that you can do in the database. I'm also at the bottom of the screen here, you'll see the home for the new responsive site. And this is a password and username that you can use right now. We're making it available to anyone, member or non-member, during this time, because we have a lot of people at home, a lot of people who can't go to necessarily sort of sign up as members right now. I mean, we certainly like to have members, but we thought this would be a great opportunity for people to not only see the new database, but to also sort of log into the new database and sort of play around with it a bit if they'd like. So I'm going to click on, hopefully this works, and we'll go to the database. If not, I'll sort of sign in another way. Can everyone still see my screen?
Yep.
Just I have to move a few things here. So this is the new home for the responsive version of the database. I think some of you have used the previous version, which is a legacy version that we've sort of tinkering with, but this is the new one. We sort of have it in a test bed right now, where we've been playing around with it just to sort of see. But this is for this particular time when a lot of people are at home and a lot of people want to sort of do some things sort of digitally. We thought we'd sort of make this available to people now. We were going to roll this out later in the summertime, but we thought this would be a great opportunity for people to see it and play around with it. So the first thing, to log in, you sort of click on this little hamburger that's up here in the corner, and you click on login, and that's where you could put that login information that I just gave. So this is the first landing page for the new database. I'm just going to move something on my screen so I can see it better. So this is the first page for the responsive version, and you can see some of the different items that we have in the database. As I say, the journals are probably the largest section of the database, but we also have books as well as exhibits, maps, American Banknote Company papers, as well as reference material. So at any point here, you can sort of click on where it titles the particular section. So if I click on journals, it takes me to the journal section. I can either do, it tells me a little bit about this section, what's in it. I can search across the entire digital journal collection. I can just search the American Philatelic section of this section of the database, or I can just browse journals. A lot of times I'll just click on browse journals. It takes a moment or two to load, but some of you will notice this is a little different display than we have in the other version of the database. It's currently up there. So you see actual sort of pages, title pages for each of the sections. These are all clickable and things like that. Some of the features that are on this first page, there's different types of ways you can display it. You can display it either like that, or it'll change over to, okay. It's just a little slow when it's going between these two, it looks like. So we can display it. Maybe not. Or like this, and sort of more of a, and we can just scroll through pages like that, or the particular issues that way. Whatever works for how you want to sort of look at them. You can change how many items you have per page. If you only want a few items, you can change that there. And you can see that there's only 20 of those now, and the different pages down here. You can jump to a particular page if you like. Also on the left-hand side of the screen, we have the other journals that are in the database, for example. So we have the different collections that you can search, and you notice that journals is marked. These are the other journals that are available currently. And you can click on any of those to proceed to those. If you wanted to go to the American Philatelist, you can go to the American Philatelist. There's still some issues we're working with when you see things like restricted file. It just has to do with how it's displayed. And we are working on that currently. So if I go back. So if I go back home to the original landing page, there are also other items like books. And this is a fairly small section. All these other ones are fairly small. So we have a few things in there. For example, the illustrated. And so if we were to click on that, this is the page it takes you to, a large view of that particular page. And then on this side, you have the title page as well as all the other individual pages that you can view. You can click on those at any time, and that page comes up on your screen. Same with some of the other sections, exhibits, for example, a little landing page that tells you a little bit about the collection. Again, if we go into browse the collection, it gives them a nice little screenshot of the first page of each of these, an image of each of the page of these. Excuse me. And then on the left-hand side, we've sort of broken it down in sort of various sort of titles. So if you want to see multi-frame exhibits or single-frame exhibits, or there's a particular section in there that interests you, say for single-frame exhibits, I can click on that and it'll show me all the single-frame exhibits. This one on the printing variations of the Jenny, and you can go through each of the pages in the exhibit. I mentioned earlier about the American Banknote Company papers. This is something we'd really like to explore in more detail. It's going to take a lot of time to scan the pages. As I say, I wouldn't even want to count how many thousands of pages that we have in this collection. But we did, just as a pilot project, we put some of the pages up so that people can sort of see them. If I click on one of them, so here's an example of one of the pages. Just to give you an idea, you can see some of the details. It's going to be awfully difficult if we do, say, an OCR on a page like this for it to read any of this written material, written sort of text, but it can certainly sort of read these page headings and things like that. And we're hoping to sort of have something like that, get that sort of started fairly quickly, sort of just to see what all is involved in sort of having those scanned and sort of available. We have a few maps that are available. I think we only have two currently. So we have one of the oldest thing that we have in the library is this early postal route map. It's from 1729. So this was something that was donated to us by a number of members. One of the earliest route maps in the United States that we have. We have that in our sort of rare book, sort of closed stacks area up on the second floor of the library. But we had it professionally scanned and have it available here. So I went back to the wrong page here. We do have, I know Gary's been talking in some of these stamp chats, Gary Lowe in our expertising department talking about the reference collection. We do have a few items there. Again, it was done sort of as a pilot project just to see how it would work for us. So we have a couple of pages from the reference collection, Martinique, for example. So we have a number of those pages available here. You can click on any of them to sort of view them. We're working on sort of, just to give you an idea of some of the display things that we're working on in this version of the database. We're working on how to shrink and sort of expand this view so that you can sort of fit it on a screen. And we're also looking at sort of different ways to display items on the left-hand side there. So that's a work in progress. This is sort of just the very basic sort of version of the display function right now. One of my favorite sort of sections in the database right now is the motion pictures. We do have 3 of them. We had 3 motion pictures that were donated to us on film that we have since had digitized. Most of these are from about the 1950s. They were done by the Postal Service. different sort of things. One talks about mail during wartime and how mail sort of traveled during wartime. My favorite is this one on the far right called Your Postal Career. It talks about how mail sort of just travels in general from once it leaves your post office or once you write your letter and your card, if you will, and sort of seal your envelope and put your stamp on it, put it in your mailbox, where it goes from there. And I'm just going to show you a bit of it. It's quite dated, but it's a fun watch.
I tell you, I might want to have that for a YouTube.
Yeah, we might. Yeah, we might do
next
that
week or so.
Sure. So I'll show you this one. This is really my favorite one.
Oh yeah, we need that for APS Presents on YouTube one of these upcoming evenings.
Sure.
I think I had a hat like that little boy.
All about sending your Valentine.
Yep, I had a hat like that at one time.
So I'll stop that for now. But anyway, it's a great, what it does take you through though is sort of how literally a letter goes from your mailbox to the post office to the sorting center back to whoever you're sending the letter to. Really interesting watch, actually.
That's great. Are you ready to take some questions and comments?
Yeah, I'm pretty much ready to take questions.
All right. Well, let's see.
Let me stop sharing my screen.
And show yourself.
Show myself.
Just one comment. Jeffrey Prosser says, "That is an impressive collection of scam material!" Exclamation point.
Oh, thank you.
Let's see. I've got Rob Hathaway, and his microphone is open. Rob, go ahead.
Hi, Rob.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have several questions, but my most important one is I have actually used the digital in the last couple of months. I've used the digital reference material just to see if I could figure out if my GB3, Great Britain 3 penny red was on blue paper. I became convinced it was not because your reference question showed a writing one with really blue paper. I'd be curious to hear Gary Lowe commenting on the ability to use those online materials to discern shades of paper and print and colored varieties on stamps. You know, I mentioned it depends upon your monitor, how well is adjusted.
Yeah, I mean, we even find that in the library. For example, if we scan something from a Scott catalog and somebody wants to use that, even if we scan it at the highest DPI, and it really does depend on your scanner. I mean, I can scan something digitally, but your scanner or your sort of monitor, I should say, has to see it in a certain way. So I don't know if I would sort of necessarily use it for that level of expertising. Certainly it would give you a sense of a variety color or something like that, but I would be leery about using it for expertising purposes. Although part of the reason we'd like to have some more material from the reference collection is to sort of, for people at home, to sort of just use it for a little bit of identification purposes. I don't know if I'd want to go as far as expertising material using it. That's all.
Well, my intent was just to see, should I send this off to Apex?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. That's the benefit I see too. Yeah.
Gary is going to do Adventures in Expertising tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock. So you might want to join and ask him about that as well.
Excellent. I have another question, but
Sure.
I can show that one. Kind of want other people to give them a chance.
No, you can go ahead. Go ahead. We've got one. We got one other question, but go ahead.
I'm going to share my screen.
I have to let you do that.
Oh, okay.
Hold on a second. Oh, looks like we got you.
Okay,
Hey, nice mask.
Yeah, great.
that's just what my screen had my screen up. Let's see. I did not.
I think Heidi's gonna snag that for the APS.
Well, you can snag it off the Mid City Stamp Club Facebook page. How's that sound? So put them. Shout out to Rick Howell online, who's also from the Mid City Stamp Club. What I wanted to show was ask. I routinely use Google and other search engines and image search engines to try to ID strange stuff. I realize this is a standard. I was really curious as to what it was, and when doing my usual, many advanced search techniques, I often get pointed out to ancient journals out on Google, Google.com books. This is the 1991 checklist, a 1991 American Journal of Philately checklist of these very strange Egyptian departmental official seals.
Sure.
My question was the digital online collection. You scanned it so that it's OCR searchable.
Right.
If I wanted to use, scan everything out there I'd have to use your search engines. Google will never get there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
For our material?
Yeah.
Yeah, Google won't find it. Yeah.
Okay, but I could log in and put the same search criteria in, and I would maybe find something that way.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to play with that. Thank you very much.
There you go.
All right, we have Ron with a question.
Oh yeah, I find that it's hard to find an issue of American Philatelist by issue date. I know there's a years list on the left side, but it's in random order and.
Right. So one of the things I'm working on is, we found that too. So what Content EM, when we use the software, it's a very basic version of it. And they allow a lot of customization for it. One of the things I'm in the process of trying to customize are those dates on the left-hand side, are other things that don't appear necessarily in alphabetical order, which I think they should. And so that is a process we're working on.
Okay.
I don't understand why it displays that way, why it wouldn't just come naturally in chronological order. It doesn't for whatever reason. So
All
that,
right, thanks.
yeah.
All right, we've got Stacy Adam with a question. Stacy?
Oh, hello.
Hi, Stacy.
I just did like a very quick test, but I was wondering if there's any plan to sort of break up the journals by articles for when you're searching certain terms. I notice it seems to highlight sometimes and pull up to specific pages, but it doesn't seem like it does that all the time.
That is true. Again, it's an issue with the software. So the search software that's part of Content EM, and we are going to be upgrading that search software. It doesn't necessarily highlight it all the time. I have noticed I've searched myself for terms that I know are on a page, and sometimes it doesn't find them. So one of the things that we're finding with the responsive site that I showed you today, it has better search software, not perfect, and it still needs to be worked on. So it's something we are addressing, yes.
Oh, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, let's see. Looks like Richard Judge. Richard, Richard, do you have a microphone today?
Yes, I do.
Great.
Hi, Richard, how are you?
All right, ask your question.
I've actually moved into high tech. I don't have a video yet.
That'll be tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering about translation of that German journal. I mean, is there a provision for computer-driven translation?
Not currently. I mean, it is still something I'm sort of weighing the pros and cons. I want at least to have it searchable using German, obviously German terms and German things, but in terms of it being, you're talking about it being translatable into, say, English or something like that?
That's right, on the fly. In other words, you could highlight it and get it translated.
That's an add-on that I'm gonna have to work on and sort of see what's available that we can sort of offer.
Sounds expensive.
It may be, we'll see.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome, Richard.
So, Richard, nice to hear from you. And now I'm going to open up Amir's microphone. Amir? Amir, do you want to unmute your microphone? There you go. Amir, you're there.
Yes, Amir.
He does not have a microphone. So
Okay.
he has somewhat of an off-topic question.
Okay.
He says, given that a librarian is hosting this program, I am searching for a book recommendation on the topic of stamp collecting, but in particular, one that is plot-driven, such as maybe the Penny Black from 1840 to 1990. Any special recommendations there, Scott?
Ooh, not for me, no, off the top of my head.
We'll hold Stump the Librarian at a later date
Sure.
on Stamp Chat.
Sure. This would
Amir,
qualify. Yeah.
Perhaps we can connect you and Amir at some
Yeah,
point.
sure. That would be fine. If he wants to email me or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else with a question?
I guess one of the things I would add is if there are sort of resources out there, whether they're book resources or journals or things like that, that people would like to see in the database, I would certainly encourage that. If your clubs or your organizations have a journal or a newsletter that you would like to have us include, feel free to contact me. I've heard back from a lot of great groups about their interest in being part of the collection. And as I say, what we offer to them, I know a lot of societies and a lot of organizations use their newsletter, use their club journal as a benefit of membership to those organizations. We offer things like a moving wall. I'm also exploring other options like advertising. So if you want, say if a particular club has this newsletter, we could put a link on that page that says, hey, if you're interested in joining this club or this organization, here's a link to their page, things like that. So we're exploring things like that as well. So to make it more advantageous for groups to join us.
Great. Still looking for more questions. Anyone have another question for Scott? Doesn't look like it.
Okay, so where we're going forward with the project is we're going to, as I think I mentioned in the PowerPoint presentation, journals is probably the area where the database is growing the most and where we hear back from people. But I do want to, in the next couple of months, sort of look into things like books, maybe those that are out of copyright that we can sort of include. We're talking to people as they publish new material, if they're interested in having at least sort of a limited version of their book on the site. We also have obviously things that the APS publishes ourselves that we're interested in sort of talking to authors of those materials, whether they're interested in having those on the website as well. So
great. I do have a question from Rick Howell.
sure.
Rick, you're on.
Hi, that's my first time on Zoom, so I'm learning
Oh,
that.
welcome.
First time caller.
Yeah. Shout out to Rob Hathaway back there for giving me a shout out earlier. I'm an addict to downloading digital information about stamp collecting.
Sure.
And I've been on your site and downloaded every issue of the APS, you know.
Okay.
So I spent a lot of time on your site.
Sure.
Do you guys have any reservations about that, or?
No, it's sort of something we offer. It comes with membership. If you want to download that material, it takes you a little while. I'm sure it took you a while, but
Yeah, it did.
I was going to say, Rick, what kind of array of hard drives do you have for all that material?
I have about 26 terabytes of storage space.
Wow. Well, you're certainly entitled to do so if you'd like to. Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people who do, not to make light of it, I know a lot of people who do like to have it available on their desktop or
Yeah.
right there. So no, we don't have an issue with it. Yeah.
Okay.
Scott, I guess we know if we ever have a problem that if we need a backup from somewhere, we can go right
Yes.
to Rick and get it.
We know where to go.
That's absolutely true. I will be glad to do that. I know that Lynn's had a problem with theirs.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
only have issues back to 2008,
Right.
and I think I have all of theirs as well. So,
Wow, cool.
but I appreciate the service you guys are providing, and I hope you're going to make it easier for people to download
Yes.
all that information.
Right. So one of the things, I didn't show you too much of the functionality on the database. What we have right now is you can either, like when you display a page, you can either download that page or the whole, say, journal issue. And what we'd like to have the option of, if I only want to download, say, page 2 to 3 of an art, like if the article is only page 2 to page 3, you can just download those 2 pages if you want.
Right.
So a little more functionality is what we're searching for. And trying to,
That's great. I'm all for functionality.
yeah. Just to give you more options, just to give people more options when they come to the site. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad to see you guys are supporting the hobby or the habit or whatever you want to call it, the addiction.
Absolutely. Yeah. Glad to have you out there.
All right.
Yeah.
And also another thing too, I'm a member of Mid-City Stamp Club down here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Okay.
And I'd like to see our journal posted up there as well. So
Okay.
I'll talk to the editor and the board of directors and see if we can do that.
Sure, that'd be great. Just either give me a call, or the easiest way to contact me is library@stamps.org.
Okay.
Either way.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Anyone else with some questions or comments? Or that was sort of a quick run through of the database. As I say, it's a real work in progress. I think one of the good things, if there's a good thing that's come out of I'm working from home now, that I've been able to sort of really work on and tinker with some of the things I've been talking about, making the searching improve, and some of the display issues that we have to improve those as well. So it's given me an opportunity to do some of that from here, which is great. So anything that you, as I say, that you'd like us to have in the database, let us know, or anything that you'd like it to do, let us know.
Thanks, Scott. Have a few things to wrap things up. Want to make sure that everybody knows what's coming up tonight at 7 o'clock. Greg Galletti is going to be part of our stamp chat, and he's going to discuss his extensive research on the League of Nations. He had a couple of articles earlier this year, the American Philatelist. So I'm sure you'll all enjoy that. Want to keep on letting you know about our YouTube presentations that come up every night. At some point, I'm going to get that film from Scott and put it up here for movie night. So we can't wait to hear that one. And also, everyone, we're starting this new membership program for folks under 30 years old, 25 under 30. Be a great opportunity to get us some new blood, fresh members into the society. They don't receive a mailed copy of the American Philatelist, but they do get the digital only, and they're able to access a lot of other material, including the American Philatelic Research Library and its digital collection. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that before we called it a session. So wanted to thank Scott again for his help today, and really appreciate it. I'm sure we'll do another one here along the way.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone for joining us today, and I hope to see you at 7 o'clock tonight. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.